early on when you're on your fitness journey, the dose that it takes to get fitter is pretty low.
It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's the Glute Guys.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to the Glute Guys Network. Today, we have another special guest, very special guest, Zach Long, the Barbell Physio. Thank you, Zach, for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, pumped to be here.
So we're going
excited to have you on, Zach.
Mm-hmm. We're going to start off with always the biggest softball thing. How did you become a physical therapist? Why did you become a physical therapist? And how did you get to where you are now?
I started out actually wanting to be a strength and conditioning coach. So in undergrad, I was working for the University of North Carolina's football team for 2 years, and then working for high school in the summers doing their football strength and conditioning. And while it was fun, I could just tell that it wasn't the thing that I wanted to do long term. And I just happened to get a job working as a tech at a physical therapy clinic. And at the end of day one of working as a tech, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And then I get into school, and physical therapy is often a little different than you think before you get into it. And I realized, oh gosh, this isn't exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. And just gotten really fortunate that I've been able to figure out how to kind of blend two things that I really like together into something that I absolutely love doing.
Yeah, it's funny how that happened so much with physical therapy. I know it was sort of similar to me. Like, I knew what I was getting into, but I also didn't know what I was getting into. Like, I sort of wanted to do sports stuff, and then here I am in geriatrics. So just a completely different direction. But we still like do a lot of stuff. Like, I actually saw your page probably like 10 years ago, believe it or not. And it was just trying to figure out different progressions for different exercises. There was like a chart that you made, and I was like, oh, that's a cool looking thing. I might use that. And then ever since then, sort of been following your stuff around. So I could see it's pretty cool how you got to where you are.
Yeah, I went like a little different direction. I thought I was going to be a neurophysical therapist and landed in outpatient orthopedics. I love neuro. I always have a spot for it in my heart, and I learned really quick during a neuro clinical. I'm like, yeah, this is for me.
You don't hear that very often. You hear a lot of ortho people that get surprised that they love neuro, but not the opposite.
Yeah, I was the opposite. So both my grandmothers had ALS. So I grew up watching them with their rehab, and I thought I would want to get really into it. And then when I found like outpatient, had to go through it myself, I was like, I think this is what I really like. It was more like sport involved, and that's how I started getting to it. Same thing, found your page, and it was taken off from there too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from day one, there was no chance of me ever doing neuro. Or
It's tough, man. It's its own beast for sure.
Yeah. I've actually had some dreams where I was told that if I didn't go practice in neuro for a year, I would lose my license to practice, and I could never practice physical therapy ever again. And I just said, cool, I guess I'm done with this career. Let's move on to whatever's next.
See you later.
Yeah, so I know like big into physical therapy, but also big into CrossFit. So when did CrossFit start? How did you get into CrossFit?
So I first started just looking at CrossFit. My brother was into military, and so we'd always talk about fitness for military. And I ran into CrossFit in its early days, and I saw the applicability to the military really early. But I didn't think that like it was for me. So I was just kind of saying like, hey, I saw this workout. I've been reading your stuff online. You need to check it out. And then eventually after I finished with physical therapy school, my first PT clinic was really close to a CrossFit gym. So I joined it, and it was a lot different than what I kind of thought from the outside, and really fell in love with it.
Yeah, I think we all hear with CrossFit some myths that probably aren't true. And we actually wanted to talk about those a little bit, but it is fun.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, one of the posts I saw recently from you was how they were saying people with CrossFit are more likely to get hurt. And I think you posted something about how if you don't do anything, you're way more likely to get injured than if you're like doing CrossFit, actually strengthening your body. Yeah.
So recently there was a really popular influencer, I forget what her name is, but I think she's got like 1 million followers. And she posted that doing CrossFit was worse than not exercising at all, which is quite possibly the dumbest health statement that's ever been made. Any form of exercise is better than doing nothing at all. I would rather
100%.
exercise by taking resistance bands, stretching them, and like shooting at your partner. That's better than you not exercising at all. Like, ridiculous statement to make overall.
Yeah,
It
I
is
think
sad that it's still believed so frequently that CrossFit's more dangerous than other forms of exercise when that has just been proven time and time again. I mean, it's such a big myth that there's actually a lot of research money behind it, where now there's probably 15 research studies that have looked at CrossFit injury rates. And all but one of them show injury rates between like 2 and 5 per 1,000 training hours. Which if you pull up injury rates on powerlifting, Olympic weightlifting, Zumba, running, yoga, it's all in that range of 2 to 5 per 1,000 training hours. And then like from a big hypocrisy standpoint, like how are people okay with little league football? As somebody that played football their entire life, that has coached football, we let kids run around in little league football that has much higher injury rates than that has really bad stuff like CTE that happens long-term with football. Mm-hmm. And we're worried about somebody getting rotator cuff pain in CrossFit. Like, what a ridiculous thing to overall be worried about when 17% of the money spent in the United States right now is spent on healthcare. Mm-hmm. When 7 out of 10 people are dying from chronic diseases that are largely preventable if people just do small things like eat better and exercise. We want to do anything to get in the way of somebody potentially finding the form of exercise they love. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, one of the biggest.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like.
Oh, sorry. So you go.
I was gonna say, I feel like anything is like can be dangerous and cause injury if you're pushing it to a certain limit, of course. It's all based on technique and your form, but also CrossFit, and correct me if I'm wrong, it uses a lot of functional movements that you see in a lot of everyday things as well. There's a lot of like larger movements too, but they're all like functional to an extent too.
Yeah, I think we have to appreciate that. I mean, there are gyms that do really bad programming. There are gyms that do a bad job in the CrossFit space. Just like there are really bad doctors, there are really bad accountants, there are really bad people in all areas. Bad from a skill set perspective, not necessarily saying that they're trying to hurt people, but you can't look at one bad example and then say, oh yeah, all of CrossFit bads. There's millions of people doing CrossFit around the world. There's thousands of affiliates. Yes, there's going to be some that do things really stupidly.
100%.
But for the most part, we need to look at what's happening in 90% of gyms out there, and it's really great stuff. And CrossFit probably has more examples of people that have lost 100 plus pounds in their fitness journey than probably any other fitness regimen out there. And I don't see anybody that is as aggressive as CrossFit has historically been saying, send us the people that are morbidly obese. Send us your 65-year-old woman that can barely walk to the mailbox. Like, that's who CrossFit as a whole aims at. Like, typically when people think of CrossFit, they think of like Rich Froning or somebody that's just super jacked and fit. But CrossFit headquarters as a whole says, we want people that don't do this. And we're going to scale to match their needs, but still get after it.
Yeah, it can have a whole range of like, younger to older too. And if you think about it, those gyms are being ran by like highly trained coaches versus not to hate on the personal training realm, but if you look at some of the personal trainers, I would say I put my money on a majority. A lot of them in these smaller or like these, these gyms, they take their course, they go get the certification, they start training people, and they don't have any experience versus these CrossFit gyms are, highly trained coaches taking them through these programs.
Yeah, people crap on the CrossFit certification as a whole, which is, I think, a little hilarious. So they talk, all you need is a weekend-long certification to become a PT or to become a CrossFit owner. And that is true. But if you take the CrossFit Level 1 course, what you'll note is that they drill coaching these movements. They drill technique and make you actually practice it. The other personal training certification I have is the NASM's Performance Enhancement Specialist. That was an open book online quiz. It doesn't talk about exercise technique. What is more valuable to my ability to take Sally, who's never exercised in her life, and make sure that she's safe? A course that's in person where I have to practice coaching and cueing the points of performance of movements, or an open book online quiz. Clearly, it's the CrossFit course. Now, yes,
Exactly.
I don't want a CrossFit gym owner that only has their level 1 and has never done anything else in their life to develop their skill set. But the same could be said about like a physical therapist. I wouldn't want a PT that got their DPT and never took a continuing education course after that in their life and thought that the DPT was all they needed to be there. And CrossFit doesn't say that that's all you need. So they have all kinds of different courses afterwards to propel you forward. Some of the best coaches I've ever worked with were CrossFit coaches.
It's like you said, with healthcare, with just fitness in general, there's going to be some good ones, there's going to be some bad ones. But it definitely seems like the common denominator with the good ones is you keep striving to be better, you keep striving to improve.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that you see a lot, like, especially in physical therapy. You have those mills where they see like 3 or 4 people an hour. And it's really tough to actually give what you were saying, proper technique, proper time that you need to hear from people sometimes. But like you said, also, I know when I was in school, I really didn't know how to cue technique as well as I needed to. Thankfully, I actually had a really good clinical instructor who we had on before. His name's Anthony Falco, PT in New Jersey. And he was actually really into CrossFit too. So he pounded into me, probably similar to how the CrossFit class is, deadlift, squat, bench, and just went really into it and snatches and all this different stuff. Like, part of my clinical rotation was us doing those exercises and just him critiquing, making sure I was doing them properly. And it's something that actually, even with like geriatric population, is huge. Like it's something that a lot of people are going to do. You're going to have to deadlift all the time. You're going to have to do a squat all the time, regardless of who you are. And if you're not doing them, you probably should do some. All right. And then going, I guess, a little bit more into the social media presence and stuff like that. What made you decide to start doing, make Barbell Physio, get into all that stuff?
Started my website when I was still in physical therapy school, just because I knew I didn't want to be in the clinic 40 hours a week, treating people for my entire life. So I started that in PT school just as a way to eventually differentiate myself and allow me to figure out what that became. I didn't have a picture for what that was going to be long term, but I just started it to give myself opportunities and started writing for CrossFit Journal, different articles on technique and mobility and injury prevention to kind of educate their coaches a little bit more. And my sister, who is in brand management for a number of big companies over the course of her career, she was like, "You got to get on this Instagram thing." And at the time, like, I didn't have a smartphone. Well, that's going to age me a little bit there. But like, I still had a flip phone when all of my friends had the smartphone for years. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be connected that much. And she convinced me to get on Instagram and start doing that. And I took off.
Yeah, hey, it works out. And I know a lot of it with Instagram is just consistency, doing it for a long time. And if you started when Instagram started or around that time, I'm sure that sort of helps it too. Like, you sort of get to know the algorithm. Like, I know for us, understanding the algorithm for like Instagram and YouTube is always like a interesting thing that can be a little bit challenging. But it's, I guess, like anything, you just have to keep learning and keep trying.
Yeah, it's annoying, to be honest with you, like playing the algorithm. And I think a lot of times people get overemphasize trying to go viral and get views versus just saying, I'm going to do what's most authentically me and just focus on serving the people that I want to. There are so many people with really small businesses that have small social media accounts, and from those small social media accounts they have a lot of like true deep fans. So if I could say one thing to people wanting to grow on social media, it's worry less about the numbers. Every time I've had a post go viral, I've not noticed any dramatic change in revenue after that viral post.
That's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah, because you would always think, like, you hear people go viral all the time and you're like, oh, they probably like did something with it or got something out of it. But the thought that, yeah, like, it really isn't going to change your revenue is something I never really thought about. It makes sense though too.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, especially nowadays, and I mean, TikTok entered the chat, and everyone's so focused on trying to make that viral hit, thinking that's going to be their takeoff. And and whatnot. I feel like it's just the vision is focused so much on that now.
And it is so easy just to get into the numbers and like really look for the viral posts. Like I know, especially when we first started, I was really like that. I was like, man, this one is doing really good. I'm sure we're going to get 10 new subscribers and we're going to get all these new things. And now it's just sort of like, you know what, if we're being consistent, we're finding our audience. We'd rather have like 100 followers that really like us and want to hear from us versus 10,000 followers who barely even respond to us and don't even want to talk to us. So yeah, getting used to that idea is definitely different. Actually, the funny thing about my Instagram journey is it started with my cat, and I have a cat account, and I didn't follow any other people. I just followed all different cat accounts, and I still have
Grow the
an
audience.
account. Yep. I don't post on it really as much as I used to, but I still have on that account one lady that every day sends me a message that says, "Happy Monday, beautiful kitty. Happy Tuesday, beautiful kitty."
Please tell me an
nice.
old lady who thinks she's messaging a cat and not a 31-year-old grown man.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. It's someone who, if I said her name, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely an old lady that's just sitting on her phone looking at cat.
Loretta. Loretta was my grandmother, so shout out Loretta. But all right, anywho, so we start the online Instagram and then we graduate from physical therapy school. Where did Onward Physical Therapy start along the journey?
I will teach for a company called the Institute of Clinical Excellence, or ICE Physio. And Jeff Moore is the owner of that company. Jordan Berry is another instructor for that. And essentially, we were all looking at what we were teaching and the current healthcare landscape, where we're talking about, really pushing fitness in a rehab setting, where we take somebody's back pain as an opportunity to get them exercising and deadlifting, things like that. And while that is, I believe, all true, it is very difficult to implement that type of strategy in so many different physical therapy clinics. And then when you look at insurance reimbursement, at certain levels, they are going to cut you off when you're moving past, working on somebody's activities of daily living, and now you're working truly in the fitness space. You can't really do that inside like your standard in-network clinic. And so we wanted to create a space where you weren't handcuffed by what insurances say you can and can't do, by being the oddball in an in-network clinic where you're the only person having people exercise and doing HIIT intervals within physical therapy sessions. We wanted to do what we thought was the right way to do physical therapy, like at its absolute peak, and that requires not being in network, I believe, right now. Mm-hmm. Not saying that great stuff can't happen in network. I just think that some of the handcuffs of that will hold you back in some areas. And also, as we all know, the dealing with insurances and the billing requirements there is a headache on your life. And if you can get rid of that, it makes going to work a little bit more enjoyable than it is otherwise. And so that's when we started Onward Physical Therapy. We opened our first one up in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2019. And as of today, we are now in 35 cities nationwide, all again at a network focusing on fitness forward physical therapy.
Not too shabby.
That's awesome.
I do think, like you said, from the insurance standpoint, that's definitely one of the most frustrating things for me. Like, I know sometimes I'll have patients. I actually had a coworker who had a patient that had like $120 copay, which to me didn't even make any sense. And when someone says like, oh, I don't want to pay $120, I'm like, yeah, I understand that. That's just like, especially as a copay, it doesn't make sense how that's even like allowed sometimes. Especially, I have a lot of my population in like assisted living or independent living, and they don't really have a lot of money. All their money is really just going right into the building. So at that point, like, how do you expect that person to spend $100 on a session when they really don't have $100 just laying around?
Yeah, the insurance situation is overall
It's
very, very messy. You have not only the massive copays, but then you got people getting surprise bills in the back end, because of negotiated rates, everybody has these hyper-inflated prices and nobody just charges what their time is worth per hour. It's an unfortunate, messy situation right now.
So
Oh yeah, well, I'm in and out of network clinic myself too, and it makes it a lot easier on the insurance side because we don't negotiated rates, but you can just still see all of like the mess that insurance has turned into, and just not even to mention on our end, the cuts that they like to make and the changes, and even out of network, I feel like there are still some obstacles that we find out every January that get annoying, but it's definitely less of a headache than the in-network side.
So do you have any like tips or tricks for people trying to get away from the insurance side of thing and go more, I guess, private pay?
Yeah, I think there's two big things. Number one, Jeff Moore, my business partner, has this saying that I think is really important. Get good, then get busy. So focus first on developing a unique skill set with a certain population that really cares about finding somebody that has that skill set. But take care of your clinical skills first. If you do that, whether you stay in network or go out of network, no matter which route you go, you will get busy because you are good. How long it takes for you to get busy when you're really good depends on your ability to sales and marketing. And so develop a good clinical skill set and then work on sales and marketing so that you can actually communicate that you have that skill set to your ideal population, and that will speed up your ability to get your clients in the door.
So do you think there's any indicator like, oh, I know I have the skill set, I'm ready to do it? Or is it sort of just, you just go with it? Like you've been doing it for
Trial
a
and
while,
error.
you've had a lot of patience, you seem to have good results? Or is there any other indicator you could think of that might help people know?
I think the tough part with that question, I won't have a good answer for you. But have you ever met somebody that said, you know what, I'm a really bad clinician? Now, when I look back at my career, I recognize that when I was a young clinician, I was a really bad one.
Yeah.
But I didn't recognize that at the time. And so I think that that's probably a situation where having good mentors might be one of the answers there.
Mm.
A good mentor, people are soft these days. But so many people have a mentor right now that's not actually a mentor, they're a cheerleader. People that just tell you, hey, you're doing well. The mentors that I have in my life tell me when I'm screwing up and when I'm doing something dumb. And they do it with pretty harsh feedback. And so that might be one way to find that answer. But I do think that's tough.
That's actually funny that you mentioned that, because I have a few students every once in a while, and like you said, people are a lot more sensitive when you try to tell them something. Like I had one girl, and this is going into a different tangent a little bit, but I asked her a simple question. This is supposed to be her last clinical. We were in our first week. We had to start with a patient, and I said, "What exercises should we do with this person?" And she said, "I don't know. You're supposed to teach me that." And I was like, "This is your last clinical. You should be able to at least tell me one thing. Like you should be able to tell me, like, kick your legs out, like stand up and sit down. It's not
Something
that
basic.
crazy." But me, like, sort of coming back at her made her like all defensive, and she was mad and grumpy, and then just a lot less productive of a day just because she was sort of having a hissy fit, for a lack of a better term. But it just shows that it's like almost a different style of teaching that you have to use. Like it can't be as combative. It's more like sort of, swaying around things, trying to get to your point, but in different ways. Eventually she did a lot better, but it's sort of a different topic, but I could tell there were a few gaps that she had in her knowledge that she probably should have known at that point, but somewhere along the way it was missed, to the point that at the midterm I talked to her, like the director of the internship program, and I was like, you should really make sure you have some classes where you just go through exercises like we did when we were in school. So we like talked about mechanics and things like that. And her response is, I don't think that's very important. We need to do other stuff. And I was like, All right.
No, it has to be exam, so it doesn't get covered at PT school.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's too bad. Tom and I both went to Seton Hall, and we think they actually did a very good job of that, of going over exercises. Like, could it have been slightly better? Probably, but we were equipped and we were ready for like at least exercise prescription, finding the right treatment for somebody. Like, it wasn't like we went and saw like our first person in our last clinical and we're like, I don't know any exercises or anything to do with these people. It was like, okay, I feel pretty good. I have this knowledge. I just have to learn how to use it. Like you said, I was probably a bad clinician when I first started as well. There were a few things that were missing, but we grow from there. We keep learning.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, my boss right now actually is the physical therapist. He was my physical therapist when I was 16, and then I was his aide, and then he helped me get to PT school. And I'll say to the same thing that you just said, Zach, like he's been my mentor since day one. So shout out to my boss, Jacob. I'm now 30, so I've been working with him for 14 years, and he is not shy to lay into me when I need it. And he's helped me grow, man. Like there's been a couple times he sat me down and we had papers out in front. He's like, this is where you're messing up. This is where you're messing up. And this is where you're messing up. Do better. I'm like, okay. And he's taking on the chin and you grow.
Yep.
It sort of just reminds me of like my football days, honestly. I still remember watching, like having film sessions, and my coach is just like ripping apart every little thing I did. Like my best example of it was I was playing defense, and it was just a practice. They were filming practice, and I was going up I was playing a nose tackle, so right in front of the center, and I thought I had a great play. I stopped the center, went right past, got a tackle. And my coach's response was, whoever that center was, that was terrible. You should not let that guy get past you. I was like, well, I thought I did a pretty good job. But the criticism actually helped me get better. It helped me find little things that I can improve on and actually build from it. And I guess that's why today I still would rather have a bunch of criticism than nothing.
Oh, yeah.
So going into our next little topic here, what are some of the most common fitness myths that you see as, I know we talked about some already, as a physical therapist, strength coach in the CrossFit?
I think the biggest thing that from a individual perspective that needs to be appreciated with fitness is that you don't have to go all in. You don't have to start 5 or 6 days a week doing hour-long workouts. Early on, when you're on your fitness journey, the dose that it takes to get fitter is pretty low. And so let's start with using that low dose and just building the habit versus jumping too fast into it and burning out. So the analogy I often use for this when people is think about this as drinking alcohol. When you first start drinking, it doesn't take a whole lot of drinking for you to feel buzzed. If you've been drinking a lot at a high frequency and high volume, it now takes you significantly more to get that same feeling. Well, let's take advantage of this early time in your fitness program where you don't have to go crazy. We can do 3 times a week, 30 minutes. One of those days might just be a 30-minute walk. Another day might have a couple of strength moves. Another day might have an interval session. But you'll get a lot fitter in that. Next month, let's take those 3 30-minute sessions and let's make it 3 45-minute sessions. And then the next month, 4 45-minute sessions, and just slowly build. But I want to start the habit over everything else where it just becomes part of your daily journey. I've been exercising for such a long time that like even 2 years ago, I went through a really rough bout of depression. And I never wanted to exercise. But it was just part of what I do every day. So there were plenty of days where I went in, and instead of working out hard for an hour, I went and half-assed it for 30 minutes. And that was fine. I was just glad that like my habit carried me through on my fitness journey during that really rough time in my life. But I think people need to appreciate that a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
That reminds me of a story of one of my buddies, actually. When he first started lifting, he would have days like that where he just like, he wasn't feeling good. He didn't feel like he had the best quality workout. But I sort of said the same thing. It's like, it's better for you to get out and do this exercise, even if it isn't perfect, than to sit at home and watch TV all night. In the long run, that's what's going to get you progress, and that's what's going to get you stronger.
Yeah. I have the same conversation with like family and friends and even my patients. I tell them like, I even take it a step back where it's like, you don't necessarily need to go to a gym or join a gym. I was like, you just said, Aaron, you're sitting and watching TV, start some activity in the living room, clear out some space. You're watching TV. Yeah. I would start doing some body weight squats, do a little home routine for 15, 20, 30 minutes just to ignite something and start something. But I could speak in the same sense, Zach, of like, it's, as you're going through your fitness journey, sometimes things change. Like I've gone through a similar bout of depression where it's like I don't feel motivated to work out, but just getting to my normal like routine for, like you said, 30 minutes or so feels good, and it's better than just doing nothing. But also in that same sense, it kind of helped lift me out of that depressive state at times too. Just when I was done, I was like, you know what, I'm actually really happy I did that. So there's a lot that goes into it.
There's one really cool study, and I won't be able to quote the name of the study or the authors, but they had participants in the study. They were all older adults, get on an exercise bike and go as hard as they could for 6 seconds. And then they rested for a minute, and they did that for 10 rounds. So 6 seconds of work for 10 rounds once a week, 60 total seconds of work. And that group saw significant improvements in their 5 times sit to stand, their time up and go, and a few other metrics. But it's crazy to see that the dosage you need to start improving your fitness is pretty low. And so for that reason, the company that I teach for, Ice Physio, we're huge on just taking your standard exercises that you're doing in PT with somebody that's not active and putting that into like an EMOM. We call those Rehab EMOMs. Credit to Mitch Babcock on that one. But we can take your standard PT exercises, put it inside of an EMOM, a form of interval training, and create a larger effect on the whole human than just doing the basic PT exercises that you're doing with somebody that's high irritability pain.
Yeah, and to your point, as again, someone that works in geriatrics, I've had patients that the first day I would go in and just doing a sit to stand is like, it takes 30 seconds just to do one sit to stand, and it's like terrible. And all I'll do is just say, just practice standing up and sitting down a few times the next few days. And believe it or not, I'll come back the next session and I'll be like, what happened? Like, how did you get this much stronger this fast? And that's all it is. They just went from doing basically no activity to finally getting themselves going. Like I had one patient who hadn't gotten out of her chair, or she's gotten out of her chair, but she hasn't walked in like 3 years. And basically the first thing that we did was just go stand by the counter, have her stand a little bit. And although she wasn't walking like 1,000 feet, we did get her to walk like 200 or 300 feet with the walker. And it's like all it took was just get her moving around a little bit more. Like it wasn't like any rocket science. We didn't go do 1,000-yard runs or anything. She got her what she needed just from standing at the counter, really, honestly. And also to your point, as far as when people first start, one of the big things that I think we both like to say is the exercise that you like is the best exercise to do because it keeps you consistent. It also goes back to what you were saying with CrossFit. With all the bad stuff out there, it takes people away that would probably benefit from it a lot. And that's always frustrating to me. Like, we want people to do whatever exercise they like. And like my wife likes riding or doing the Peloton classes and riding the bike. I sort of do a handful of things. But
you have an interesting workout routine.
Yeah. It sort of goes.
Zach, I've gone over his house before, and he's like, "All right, this is the workout routine that we're gonna do." And I'll just at a minimum, I'm just gonna say it was interesting. I was sweating by the end of it, but yeah, you got some interesting ones in there.
It's sort of a hodgepodge of like strongman, a little bit of powerlifting, a little bit of CrossFit movements, a little bit of bodybuilding. Like, it's sort of a little bit of everything that are just things I think are fun, and it just helps me be more consistent and also honestly see gains as well.
Yeah.
All right. So our next thing, what is your best advice for new grad physical therapists, or up and coming strength and conditioning coaches, CrossFit coaches, any people in that realm?
Let's go back to the mentorship discussion. actually finding good mentorship. And the problem with that is that everybody that hires new grads says that they do mentorship. And the mentorship that I typically see is pretty garbage. So they consider mentorship to be, all right, you've got a challenging case. So you come to your mentor in a 5-minute break and you say, I'm really struggling with this person's low back pain. And they just throw out like 5 random exercises. Have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? That's not mentorship. Mentorship is we block 30 to 60 minutes and you show up and you pull up that client's body chart and you walk your mentor through. Here's where they had pain, but I checked off that the pain didn't go below the knee. They didn't get any symptoms in their foot. It was only on this side. And then you walk through the subjective and what they reported aggravated their symptoms, what eased it. And from that, you say, okay, based on that, here are the different things I'm thinking might be going on. And so here's what I did in my objective assessment to test that out. My objective findings were this, so I chose to implement this as my treatment for the day. And they go through each one of those sections and they say, that was great, but you missed this. This wasn't on your hypothesis list and it should have been. That test wasn't needed, but you forgot to do this one that really would have cleared this up for you. You took that objective examination and you had a good idea with trying this treatment, but this one would have been a little bit better. That is what true mentorship looks like. Diving into helping you actually elevate your clinical reasoning, not just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and hoping that it sticks. And then beyond that, like what I do with my team at Onward Physical Therapy in Charlotte is every month we have a meeting, and each month someone on our team dives into one of their areas of clinical specialty. So like last month, for example, I led the talk where all I discussed in an hour-long conversation was subscap pain in the fitness athlete. I talked about one rotator cuff muscle in one specific population for an entire hour. So now I know my team is dramatically less likely to miss that clinical presentation when it shows up, and they have a better idea of the long-term plan of care. And I recognized that was an issue because when I was talking to our clinicians around the country, like one thing that popped up over and over was people that got to that it was a subscap strain, but it took them 2 or 3 visits to. And I was like, oh, because of that in-depth mentorship, I recognized that there was a hole that a few of our clinicians were missing. And I said, we're going to completely fix that this month.
Yeah, and it definitely is easy as a mentor to just like throw stuff at someone and not really think about it. But like you said, it takes time. It's not just going to be something that you can expect people to just get without any good leadership. Like I know a lot of my instructors for my internships were very into having a mentor as well. Like the importance of having someone that can help you develop your craft once you're sort of out there. But I work in home health, so it's a little different, but I actually had a very good mentor that just sort of got me going, got me sort of into this stuff. And my company does a pretty decent job of, although we don't really see people face to face all the time, we still get to talk to each other and find ways to improve and do things better. And now, like I said before, I'm in the assisted living, so I have a few other clinicians that are there that you can sort of bounce ideas off of and get things that I never really would have thought of just from sort of being by myself.
Yeah, I feel like the first style mentor that you described is someone who's just kind of just like trying to copy and paste themselves rather than helping that clinician develop into who they are best version of their clinical self can be. I feel like that person's like, oh, they have this kind of pain, just like do this, 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 or this, and just see what works. And they're just implementing what they've seen and not even. I feel like a mentorship feeds both ways, where it's like, yes, the mentor is teaching the mentee, but it's also the mentee is helping the mentor grow too. You know, it kind of goes back and forth. I think that's the best style of mentorship, is like when both can kind of learn and grow together. Obviously, the mentee learning more along the way, but still, there's always something to take out of it. So I like how you're doing it and developing it. Like you're coming together as a team, meeting, like you just said, you talked for how long about that rotator cuff muscle, and now everybody's learned and everybody knows that these are the signs for it. And that's true mentorship, is just blocking that time out and sitting down and discussing it. So I love that.
Yeah. And again, like you were saying, just being able to actually think things through and like develop your brain and your thought process. I know that was a big thing for me, especially in my last clinical, where I wasn't good at going into a room and sort of analyzing what was going on. So I worked in the hospital and for my last clinical. There was a lot of stuff going on. And I'm a little bit of a space cadet, especially when I first came out of school. So you'd see lines and tubes everywhere. You'd see it's a very complex situation. People were like in the ICU, so they're having a tough time. And I would just sort of run in there and be like, hey, let's get up. And it wouldn't always be like they wouldn't always need the most upbeat, chirpy person. Sometimes you just have to come to their level and understand where they're at. Then even more so than in the ICU, we went to the psych unit as well. And if you weren't good at sort of managing your emotions and all that stuff, it was just going to go terrible. And the best example for that is I had this lady who was very sensitive, we'll say that. And I came in all chirpy student, like, hey, how you doing? Why don't we get up and go? And she was just like, get out. I was like, okay, I'll see you later. And then I walked right out. I went up to my instructor. I was like, I don't know what happened. And she basically went through it with me. Like, what do you think you did wrong? What were you missing? And we got to the point where it was like, yeah, it was just so much emotion and too much for her. And she's like, okay, switch it, go back in and try again. And we did. It was just, instead of being, hey, it was more, hello, nice to meet you. I'm a physical therapy student. And she actually took to that way better. Turns out she actually liked me a lot after just getting to know her a little bit, not being so wild and crazy with her. But it was a very good experience to, I guess, learn how to read the room and learn how to, I guess, think things through a little bit more than I might have in my student days.
Yeah, one of my first mentors, actually, same clinic that you were at, Aaron, with Anthony. I had this other physical therapist, Brad. He would make sure I had a clinical reason for everything that I was doing. He'd be like, okay, what exercise you can do to this patient? And I would tell him, he'd be like, why? Sometimes I didn't have the answer. He's just like, go read this and then come back to me and tell me why. He would actually take the patient essentially away from me for that moment. He would treat them while I went and figured out why I was going to deliver what I was doing. So he made it definitely challenging, but I appreciated that because now I can figure out the whys on everything.
Yeah. I don't take PT students anymore because my clinical hours are pretty low right now. But when I take students, or when my clinic takes students, our process is really like, you have to earn the ability to do the subjective examination with people. Once you've proven that you have that down, then you start proving that you can come up with the right hypothesis list of what you think their symptom generator is. Once you've done a good job with that for a few sessions, we start to build the objective assessment together. Once we do that, and you're doing well at building the objective, you're going to start choosing what the first trial treatment we do is, and just making them take it step by step so that they develop each set of that clinical reasoning process really well before we add more to it. And then eventually it's, okay, look at this person that you've seen with me for the last 3 visits, and I want you to come, a couple minutes before we start treating, I want you to write down what the asterisk signs we're tracking are for this person is. Write down, what exercises they've been doing at home. If things are going well, how might we progress that? If it's not going well, how might we regress that? Or what other competing hypotheses might we need to go back and revisit? And I think that's the way you develop clinical reasoning.
Oh yeah, that's exactly how Brad used to do it for me. He would sit with me and be like, okay, do the intake of this patient. I would do the intake, I'd go through it, and he'd come back and he'd be like, all right, what'd you see? And I was like, well, I saw this, this, and this. And he goes, why don't you take a closer look at, and he would point at something I missed, and he would tell me to go and look, and I would go and look, and he'd come back and be like, okay, what'd you see? And I'd tell him, he's like, no, he goes, go look again. So he would make me earn my way up to kind of, going through the treatment process with each patient. So it was definitely something similar that I definitely I appreciated and helped me grow up a lot.
So we know you're very into educating physical therapists, coaches, all that stuff. And you've had a few different books. What does it take to, I guess, write a book, to get into it, and then actually get it out there as well?
I've not written physical books yet. I've only written like little ebooks.
Oh, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, the ebooks. I count it.
Oh, don't count it. really, when I write those, it's just trying to condense some knowledge into a bit easier of a spot for people to go and dissect stuff. Yeah, I don't have
Do you want to write? Do you want to write a physical book in the future?
That used to be a long-term goal. I don't know right now if that'll happen again. Just so much of my career is shifting right now where I'm in the clinic a lot less and more focused on business development and helping the people underneath me, that I don't know how much longer I don't know how much longer I'll be able to treat, to be honest with you. And if I'm not treating, so right now my clinical caseload is really condensed where I only treat shoulders, hips, and knees because I only treat a handful of hours a week. It's been a long time since I've treated a neck. So like I actively feel like my neck skills are like plummeting right now. And if I get away from treating anymore, it would be really hard for me to go back and do something like write a book on that.
Gotcha.
If you don't
let's dive into let's dive into that. So it sounds like you've got some projects that are maybe in the works or things that are coming up. What are some things that either you personally or Onward Physical Therapy might be working on and growing?
Yeah, so I'm kind of weird that I don't ever set any like long-term goals for what I want my businesses to do. I just want to keep working on the things that I enjoy the most. So I base most of my business decisions on this quote by Howard Thurman. Don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. And I just try to work more and more on the things that I really, really enjoy doing. And the more I do that, the more stuff tends to grow in the right direction. So from a business perspective right now, I don't actually have any really big projects going on right now. It's just continuing to do the same old stuff, which mostly is just getting more members and people jumping into my business performance plus programming, and then finding the right fits for people to work in Onward Physical Therapy clinics that are super passionate about that area.
Yeah, and you can always tell when people are more passionate about stuff and like they care about it. Like I know there's been times where I'd give a presentation to the residents of like assisted living, and it's a topic that I like and am interested in, versus stuff that they're like, oh, can you talk about this? And I was like, well, I guess I could talk about it. And the ones that I'm interested in, like you could tell, it's like it's very you're into it, you're motivated, you're getting people involved. Then the stuff that you're like, oh, well, I guess I'll do that, is like it's not the worst thing ever. Like I still put time into it and prep it, but it's just like I'm not excited, so it's tough to get people excited when you're already not excited about a certain topic.
Yeah. I think about everything in business on this like XY quadrant: things that you are great at, things that you suck at, things that you love doing, things that you hate doing. Well, anything that you suck at, you shouldn't be doing. You should try to outsource that. Or if you can't outsource it, then you need to dive deep and fixing your clinical skills there, or whatever skills there. But there are things that you do that you hate and things you do that you love. And really, you need to get rid of as much of that stuff that you hate as possible, because the more and more you're in that upper right quadrant of where you have a great skill set and things that you love doing, the easier it is for you to do a lot of it. So I don't honestly feel like I work that much because I love everything that I do, almost everything that I do. If I won the lottery tomorrow, very little about my day-to-day life would change.
Yeah, and that's amazing because you're doing what you love. And what you just said before about like the goal setting and like I don't find that weird at all, Zach. I think that's actually how Aaron and I kind of work in the same sense. We both decided that we love talking, we love meeting new people, we love educating. So that bloomed up like the podcast for us. And we were like, you know what, we could take this even a step further. And now we're in the middle of developing an online program where we can meet and coach and train people online. That's our newer thing that's coming up too. And it's just kind of a similar mindset. Like we didn't plan on it. It kind of just continue. Like, how can we take it a step further? It's just continuing to grow. So I think it's a good mindset. If you plan for too much, I always say like, you plan for something and then God laughs at it and it changes anyway. So it's awesome to see what grows as you start to water it.
Yeah, and I think especially doing a podcast, like we talk to so many different people whose perspectives you never would have gotten without us doing this thing. Like, I like even just today, like our conversation, there are a lot of ideas that I'm definitely going to use for my own, like whenever I have students and stuff like that. So it's just another way for us to progress not only work, but home life, career, all that type of stuff. All right. So believe it or not, I mean, we're coming up on 50 minutes. Zach, how are you feeling? You feel like we could still go a little longer? You feel like you're ready to wrap it up?
15 more minutes.
All right, that sounds good. So we wanted to get a little bit into, I guess, more exercising or exercises in particular. Believe it or not, one of the first things I ever saw on your channel was about kipping. So why do you think kipping is important for fitness athletes, and why should it be added into people's routine?
Kipping is obviously a very controversial exercise where so many people hate on it in the CrossFit space. To me, it's not a essential fundamental movement that athletes like have to do. I think it's a very like CrossFit fitness athlete specific movement. It gets hated on a lot because people think that it's dangerous or it's a cheating pull-up, but CrossFit overall has always stated that it is not a replacement for strict pull-up strength. It just allows you to do more reps in less time, which means that you get a significantly greater cardiovascular effect when you do that. So you are working heart rate wise a lot harder. It feels a lot different to do a set of 20 kipping pull-ups than it does to do a set of 10 strict, even though they might take the exact same amount of time. I think when you have really good control of the kipping pull-up, your shoulder strength and coordination is phenomenal. So I do think that there's a lot of benefit to training that fast speed. But if people don't CrossFit, it's not like something that's on my goal list. For every shoulder pain patient I see, by the end of a plan of care, I want them doing kipping pull-ups.
Yeah, I guess it's
But
like
in fact, my shoulders feel healthier whenever I do them. Right now, I'm dealing with a little back injury. I can't do kipping pull-ups. I feel my shoulders I've lost a little bit of mobility in them. They just don't feel as clean as they usually do since I can't kip right now, even though I'm doing a ton of strict pull-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I get back into, actually yesterday I had to film some bar muscle ups. So a progression on the kipping pull-up, and I've not done those in a while either because of this little back thing. And man, I was flying over the bar because I'd done a bunch of strict pull-up strength to kind of build that base a little bit more. But it's definitely not as bad as people think it is. It's a solid exercise.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I feel like
you go, sir.
I feel like exercises can get a stigma of being bad. Like there's people out there who think deadlifts are terrible for you. There's people out there who think squats are awful for you. But I feel like if you're doing it, it comes down to form and execution. If you're doing them correctly, the form is good. The exercise isn't dangerous. Obviously, if it's your first time, you don't want to go whipping out kipping pull-ups like crazy. You want to work on form and execution. But I feel like exercises oftentimes get a stigma like that, where it's like, they're dangerous because of what they are, the motion themselves.
Yeah, kipping is running, right? You don't walk out, pop out of your mama day one and start running. You learn to roll and sit up and crawl and walk fast and run. So there's a whole progression of things, back to that chart that you brought up earlier, that you might go through before you get to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's exactly why I liked those charts, because it gave me an idea of how to progress when I didn't know how to progress. Like, I forget exactly what my goal was, but instead of just going right to the end, I was able to work on those little things to get stronger and then slowly build up. And it's also something that you could even just apply, like I said, to any population, really. Like geriatrics, they still have to do, maybe not a kipping pull-up, but they still have to do a lot of things with overhead mobility and figuring out ways that you can modify it to work on the stability of the shoulders. It's something that a lot of people, at least not in the health or fitness industry, aren't even going to think of. And they're not like anything too crazy either.
Aaron, I think this week that you need to start adding kipping pull-ups to the Jerry's at work.
Yeah.
I think they need it.
And that's been really cool in the CrossFit space. They're Masters Division athletes, and what those men and women are doing at 50, 65, 70 years old, and what they can do gymnastics wise, because they've been challenged to such a high extent for CrossFit over the last 15 years that CrossFit's been around.
Yeah,
Aaron and I talked about that in a video about sarcopenia and just like the effects of it as you're going through aging, and athletes who continue to consistently train over the years, who go on to their like 70s and 80s. And we even had a picture of someone who was in their 90s, like someone who trained consistently and someone who kind of was just a little bit more sedentary. And they had a cross section of the size of like the quads and the hamstrings, and you could see the difference. How amazing it was for like the person who trained consistently versus someone who was just more, just like sedentary in their lifestyle. It was very significant.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to see every year is actually the Senior Olympics. I don't know if you've ever watched it.
Yeah.
But it's actually very inspirational. Like I did a presentation actually at the independent living that I work at and just went through some of the different athletes. And they're like 80, 90, sometimes even like 100 years old. And they'll do everything you would see, like in track and field, swimming. Like there was one guy who, I forget what his name is, who broke like a bunch of records for 100 plus.
He was a swimmer.
No, that was the lady.
That lady was a beast.
Yeah.
I have to find that video. That lady was a beast.
She broke like 4 records for, I think it was two like 50-meter backstroke things, and then freestyle 2 things. And then this other guy I was talking about, he broke like a pole vaulting record, sprinting record, discus, shot put. I mean, his competition, he didn't have a lot because it was the 100 plus competition, but just showing that these people exercise and they did a lot of stuff when they're older. And because of that, they're actually doing all these things that, he might not be running as fast as a 20-year-old, but he's running, he's still doing all this stuff. And he's going to be a lot less likely to get hurt or have trouble with things than someone who's just sitting on the couch and staring at the wall for hours every day. I think you mentioned this earlier, Zach, but what are some of the most common injuries you do see from CrossFit? I know, like you said, it's not like it's all the time, but
yeah, in the research, it's pretty clear. Shoulders and backs get injured the most. Second to that, hips, knees, and elbows afterwards. But I tend to see mostly shoulders. I love treating shoulders and hips. So fortunate that, a couple other people on my team love treating backs and necks and ankles a lot more than I do. So I just stick to my shoulders.
Do you find that there's a common denominator on how they get hurt, or it's just different? It's a variety.
A huge chunk of the time, if you look back at a gym's programming, you'll notice a bias in that programming that really results in tissues getting overloaded. So if you look at like traditional CrossFit programming, they promote more doing one element per day. You go in and you do a strength lift today. Tomorrow we do a Metcon, an interval training session. Versus what you see in most gyms is they do a strength piece and a Metcon each day. And so you kind of double the total amount of volume that people are seeing in each workout, which I think does push performance more. We also have to recognize that means that recovering from that is also a little bit more difficult. So if you are familiar with gyms around you, what you'll usually start to notice is that certain gyms do more of certain things. And that will often lead to issues. So if a gym over-programs volume on the rig, then you'll see a lot of shoulder issues pop up. If you see another gym that tends to over-program barbells in the Olympic lifts, you'll tend to see a little bit more low back injuries from them. But that's your big starting point on understanding why CrossFitters are injured, is understanding the bias from the gym that they go to.
Yeah, and like you said before, every gym is going to be different, so you're going to get different things from each gym that you go to.
Yeah, and like right now, so we're at the end of October. I know a lot of people that do Squat-tober, where every day they're doing a squat workout. Well, guess what? My clinic's full of right now. Knee pain.
My buddy does it, and he came to my clinic like 2 years ago, and he was telling me, he's like, "You got to get me better for Squat-tober." I was like, "What is that?" And he showed me. I was just like, "Oh, please, God, be careful."
You can get through it, but you got to recognize that you're going to have to cut some other stuff out of your training. Like if you're doing Squat-tober, then you're doing the bare minimum upper body and cardio you want to go to maintenance volume on those essentially to get through the squats.
Oh yeah.
Small squat cycle, another great example of that. CrossFitters that are not strong enough, they jump into that program and they're squatting really heavy multiple times a week. And sure enough, 4 weeks in, their knees bothering them. It's a programming error more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you even see a lot of videos on YouTube and Instagram of people that like try to do a certain amount of thing for a certain amount of days. Like I've seen a bunch of like do like 100 push-ups for a month every day. And then every time I'm like, okay, when are they going to probably hurt themselves from not resting at all? And then 2 weeks in, they're like, oh, I got hurt. I had to stop. And it's like, yeah, it makes sense. Overwork is the thing, unfortunately. As much as we want to avoid it, it's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
But I think with that, we'll probably wrap it up for today. Zach, do you have anything else you wanted to shout out? Anything else you wanted to get into?
Yep, appreciate it. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks again for coming on. If you ever want to come on in the future, we'd love to have you again. And with that, have a nice day, everybody.